Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel Clinker2. In today's video I'm just going to be talking about the history of microtransactions and what I project the future to be of microtransactions. So without further ado, let's get into it. So we got the timeline here that I made. It goes from Magic all the way up to the future. So 1993 to the future pretty much. And we're going to start off here with Magic. So Magic is a card game. I don't know if anyone's, probably a lot of people have heard of it, but it's a card game that started in 1993. Very popular now, and it was popular then. And what Magic introduced is expansions to the world. So to this point, as far as I know, there really wasn't a board game or a card game that would introduce as nearly as many expansions as this game has. And they're making a profit on each expansion, kept on growing, and then they started making new products, booster boxes, into these things, into commander products, into basically all these different avenues of making money essentially, and they kept making these. And this is the first time I think the world has ever seen something to continue past its basic stage without making an actual sequel to it. They just kept expanding it. So next up is Maple Story. This came out in 2003, but in 2004 it offered the first mechanic of loot boxes that pretty much anyone has ever seen, which is the gachapon tickets in video games. This is an MMO, and you would go in here and you would basically put your money into these, basically like a machine in the game, and it would drop out an item, and you would take the item and you could basically use it in game. It's as simple as that. Next up we got Oblivion, 2006. Now this is the first time on consoles, as far as I know. This is the first time a microtransaction has been implemented. So in 2006, Oblivion was testing their feet in the water with horse armor. At the time, this was $5. This was probably very controversial and was very controversial back then due to the fact that this is the first time this has ever been seen in a video game on a console. So, yeah, this is the first time microtransactions have been on consoles. Next up, we got Team Fortress 2. Now, this was a big deal because in Team Fortress 2, it offered the first instances of loot boxes and a Steam marketplace set up to where you could kind of trade with people. It basically made the Steam marketplace. Along with, before that, apparently people would group up and they would trade with each other with real life money for these items in game. I talked to someone about this probably a couple hours ago on Discord. And Sniper vs. Spy came out in May 12th, 2009, which offered the first cosmetic item in the game, being a hat, as you can see here. And then the first supply crate, or blue box that we call them now, is September 30th, 2010, which is when it first came out. And at this point, there's a lot of supply crates, a lot of different cosmetics, and it still runs pretty strong on Steam Marketplace. So we got 2013, and this introduced Counter-Strike's first loot box was in this time frame. And we got some games here that basically to showcase the DLCs, the season passes, kind of how microtransactions were implemented to these games around the Xbox 360 era, mainly through season passes. So you would get all these DLCs bundled up into one purchase, and the DLCs would be like maps, story expansions, kind of like the Magic the Gathering expansions I was talking about earlier. But they would be like full-blown experiences. So Borderlands 2, Fallout 3, you got, Modern Warfare with a few maps. That's how they normally did it back then, was just maps and maybe a gun and stuff like that for zombies. If you had a zombies map, you just put that in there. And then Halo 3 had a specific expansion, but it would be paired with ODST, which is a different game, but this is an expansion for Halo 3. And at this time, CSGO introduced the first crate, which is the predecessor to a lot of crates. As you can see, this kind of aspect of Magic kind of continues on with a lot of these. They just keep making more stuff with more limited products, and that's kind of the point of the Magic expansions with card games. So next up we got 2013, which introduced the PS4 and the Xbox One, which is kind of getting a little bit more towards the modern side of things, with Ghost, Grand Theft Auto, and Fallout 4 coming out pretty much at the same time, introducing a new way of putting microtransactions in. Carrying on with the same format here with the multiplayer maps, but this time you have invasion, so you're adding some invasion maps in as well in the mix. And you got some guns as well. You got Snoop Dogg as the voice, but this is a big thing here. The DLC is a big deal, because this is labeled DLC, not a microtransaction. There's only a few of these in Ghost, and they're all DLC. They're not labeled as microtransactions or in a shop or anything. These are standalone downloads, basically. Fallout 4 has a basically more just DLCs. This would be a season pass if you bought them all at one time. And Grand Theft Auto Online came out. This started out as kind of small, if I'm not mistaken, and then you kind of like buy a tank, you could buy a plane, and now it's grown to the extreme bounds and leaps due to the fact of being one of the most popular games ever at this point, with a ton of expansions and everything like that. But yeah, this came out and it was kind of like humble beginnings at this point of the like Grand Theft Auto Online's life cycle. So next we got 2016. Now this kind of introduces a lot of the modern mechanics. Okay, so we got Overwatches with the loot boxes that they took from CS:GO and Team Fortress, and they kind of implemented in their own way. And at this time, there was Advanced Warfare, which Advanced Warfare had these loot boxes, and they were a thing, but it was more of a game mechanic that you would get progressively throughout the game. So it wasn't as, like, cosmetic as it was just, like, it was a game function. You would get guns through it, and the guns would give you more attachments and stuff like that, and depending on it, it would be like a set gun loadout. And that was kind of how that worked. And then that was the only game I've ever seen that did it that way. After that, Overwatch came out, and it was cosmetics pretty much only, as far as I know of, because it spawned Black Ops 4 to have basically loot boxes. It had Apex's loot boxes, Overwatch's loot box, Rocket League's loot boxes, and there was a lot of these on console. And Overwatch, I think, was the first one to bring this directly to console's eyes. So we got the, pretty much, you get the crappy items up to the, like, exotic, really cool looking items, and that's kind of how it works. Everyone knows how this works. Now we got Fortnite. Fortnite, to this point, all these games previously have been paid for. You pay to the game and you get the game, and then you can buy maybe a few microtransactions within it. And that's only within the recent year, pretty much, of Fortnite. Fortnite came out and it's free, and it makes $2 billion within the first year, I think. And it has a store and it has a battle pass. All these other companies are going to copy what they do. And that's exactly what they do. So now we got basically the Battle Pass, which is what one of the original ones looked like, Season 4. And now you got the storefront, which is here. And that pretty much carries into the present. But before we get there, we're going to talk about 2018, when loot boxes pretty much became obsolete. Because what happened is they had a bunch of conventions talking about loot boxes being gambling. So they think it's not safe for kids to gamble, essentially. With this controversy happening, it's only banned, limited. It's kind of weird laws throughout different countries. But since that's the case, these companies want to make as much money as possible. So altogether, they kind of just stopped making loot boxes, or made alternate ways around loot boxes, as I'll kind of discuss a little bit later here. But to the present, we just got a bunch of battle passes and stores everywhere. Every single game, if you're paying for it, if it's free, if it has a multiplayer function, if it's even single player, I've seen this. They'll do pay-to-win features. They'll do everything in their rights to try to make as much money as possible from the players as possible. And I think the big difference is here is before 2016, you had actual DLC content that was supposed to be engaging the audience. It was supposed to be deliberate. It was supposed to be like this expansion on top of the game that was made. 2016 and after is when you have this thing where it's just shovel as much as we possibly can of shiny stuff at the people until they buy it. And if one of them doesn't hit, just keep making it. And that's kind of how it works. And then basically, we got the storefronts in every single multiplayer game to ever exist now. You got Call of Duty's crazy now. You got season passes, storefronts, anything goes, battle passes, everything. Apex, this is what I was going to talk about. Apex kind of got limited by those loot boxes. They didn't change this. You still can buy these, but they have the rarities established. So you have the percentages on what you're going to get. You have like the really rare stuff, the common stuff, and all that stuff has percentages on what you're going to get. And that's kind of their way around the loot boxes without readjusting the entire system, which is fair. I think that's fine. Even Pokemon, they made their own expansion, and that's because they're behind the 8 ball, but hey, they made an expansion. And that's actually a different story. It's not because of that, but it kind of is. So the future, I think, for everybody's sake, is going to be a little bit different than what we see now. So I think something like the Steam Marketplace is an awesome idea. I think it's one of the coolest things ever. Because frankly, I see skins as cosmetics like trading cards, like in Magic. See, this all kind of breaches back to Magic because in the trading cards, because I really like trading cards. I think skins should be able to be traded with people for an X amount of money or an X amount of in-game currency, just like how it used to be in Rocket League. I mean, I guess you can still do it, but I don't know how it works now. One of the ways of doing this is potentially getting digital keys. So you could buy the skins for yourself and use them, or you can buy a digital key and attach this to your account. And depending on who owns this, you can trade it with people, or you can do some certain things, but maybe through the transaction, it can go through the company that actually makes this, and then they get a portion of that transaction, and then you get a portion of that transaction. But the big deal is here, I think you have to have it be able to be cashed out into a PayPal or something like that. Now, I understand games are meant pretty much for the younger audience. That was their intention. I don't believe that's the intention anymore. If you say what I'm saying is kind of bad, I kind of would argue that Fortnite made $2 billion in 1 year off of just cosmetics without even making an actual price tag for the game. I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, that game is built for the younger audience, and to say that that's not predatory is completely far-fetched in my opinion. So I think something like this, where basically people can get money for what they get in game, because there can be definitely some rare skins in games. That is just how it works. If it's rare, it should be worth more, and you should be able to trade it. Is all I'm saying. I feel like that's completely fair. It's how card games works and everything like that, and that's completely marketed towards the younger audience. But anyway, that's the history of microtransactions. If you like it, please subscribe and like. Have a good day. Bye.